Hello, everyone, and happy Monday. Thanks for starting our week off with us on AdvisorShares AlphaNooner. Today, we are very excited to spend some time talking through what has been going on in the cannabis theme. A lot of great chatter, a lot of great developments going on right now. So, a lot to talk through and work through and digest. So, very excited to have Noah Hamman on to start it off, work through, get some questions answered, which is a good reminder if you're out there and joining us. If you have comments, if you have questions, always a good reminder. We're trying to connect directly. So, if you have them, can always put them in the chat and we'll try to get to them as we go along. I think I see Stevie in here and Skip, which is great. Happy Monday. Happy almost
TV,
holidays.
Skip.
That is, I know we'll talk about, there's a lot going on in cannabis. The funny thing is we are kind of
What?
heading into the holidays. So it is kind of a weird time where like people are kind of disengaging normally from investing in the market, but it's kind of a time to lock in, as the kids, I think, would say, in terms of what's going on. So interesting time, but a lot to cover and unpack. How are you feeling coming in Monday on the other side of what was, I don't want to be too, evasive about it, but it was an interesting day on
Fantastic.
Friday.
It is. I'm happy to see upward price movement for any reason, right? So just to get that out there, couldn't be any happier. Happy to see some flows. Happy to see how much market appreciation, came in as a result. Um, Interesting that again, based on a headline, right? We've seen price action move not quite like this based on a headline. It's nice that the headline seemingly is a confirmation of the news we continue to hear that we are close. And I'm far more buoyed, supported, excited to see what seems to be a full court press of prohibitionists doing op-eds and showing up on the Laura Ingraham show and pushing hard. It tells me that we're close and we're almost right over the target. I'm not sure that it's today, as I think some maybe have mentioned in some articles, that I've seen floating around the weekend. I'd love for it to be today, but and I'm still in the camp of, end of first quarter is still a reasonable time frame for the administration to get something done. Same answer I think we had, a week or so ago or 2 weeks ago, which is strong feedback that it's going to happen before the end of the year. And I'm going to stay optimistic that that will be the case.
That's fair enough. Yeah, I will say that couldn't have been better timed when you were on last. I think you were talking about how you see the opportunity, see it coming soon. Again, listening to the people who are most involved, who are having this direct communication with the White House and really advocating for it to get done this year, especially could happen early next quarter. You're right, in 2026. But I think very encouraging to see and greatly timed, I think, ahead of all of this news coming out as well. I did want to talk just a little bit kind of about that timing element because I think most people are focused on something getting done today. I've seen posts where people are trying to track Trump's schedule to try to see if he's, available to sign, which I understand people want information, people want to get a
Sure.
sense of it. Um, how do people kind of balance the coverage and sort of the excitement and the momentum of something happening today or very, very shortly with kind of this being more of a sign that something's getting done in the near term future kind of thing?
I mean, it feels like it is, right? And I smile and sort of half laugh when you say people track it not to make fun at all, right? But just in some ways, how much I enjoy the space that we are in, right? The investing space, and obviously cannabis included. Two, just sort of how fun and interesting it is to track all this stuff. It's not fun to lose money. That part's not fun. But investing involves risk.
Sure.
So I love the excitement of what investing is and how it changes from day to day and all those things. With all that being said, I don't know that it changes a lot for people, right? So we can cover the first part, which is if you're a trader, trade away, right? Have a good time, and whatever Friday gave you, that's fantastic. Everyone's going to have their own trading approaches and methodology. We see plenty of people that are showing the charts and using technical analysis. I love to see that. I'm not sure that I, believe in a category like this so headline driven that charts tells me everything I want to know, but always good to look at the charts and see that. But if you're if you're not a trader, I believe at least it's reasonable to believe you invested in this space because you believe change is coming. You believe, some amount of these companies, hopefully all of them, will be able to successfully operate through these changes and grow to be very large, successful companies. You're probably the type to, again, look at history and look at, when prohibition was repealed in the alcohol industry and how that industry evolved and shaped over time. And so if those are all the reasons why you're not a trader in the cannabis space, but you're an investor in the cannabis space, yeah, I mean, you should be happy and exciting, right? The volatility can be stomach churning, but holy cow, it's great news. Your thesis is starting to play out. I think we're still, in my personal opinion, it's still at the beginning of the thesis. I think it needs to go from, rescheduling to descheduling. I think there has to be a mechanism, right, to deal with products that are low in intoxicant but can be sold more broadly. Certainly want a mechanism to better control both quality and access, away from minors, higher potency products. And boy, I just, it'll be painful probably still getting to the end of it, right, where regulatory changes have changed enough to allow for those things, because we're still relying on politicians to help get us there. But boy, this could be an initial catalyst that then can really start to push things, a lot of those things, over the finish line, and still not forgetting about people who are maybe have lost some of their freedoms or incarcerated for non-violent related things in this space, and hopefully seeing some relief come to them as well.
Yeah, I think it makes it cleaner to kind of address some of those, I guess, previous wrongs in terms of freeing people for, non-violent stuff. It seems to make things just kind of broadly across the board a lot easier. I know we've talked in the past about states that are kind of on the edge of either moving into medical or recreational. I think of Pennsylvania, something like that. I think anything to make it easier, makes a big difference. Definitely would say encourage. I know we're still only hearing, news coverage and kind of this inside element, but nothing has happened yet. I think great to be able to see kind of the lifeblood come back into the space. To me, it's a kind of confirmation sign that there is interest from an investment perspective, when and if this kind of changes over as well. But yes, I do think it is still the beginning, still a lot to go from here. And it'll be kind of great to see how I think the differences between the players will kind of further come out, which will be great importance in terms of where, you're allocating as well there.
Yeah. And for full disclosure, I think I've been disclosing, right, that I've been legging into a few options here and there.
Yeah.
When I saw it down roughly around 5% this morning,
Mhm.
legged in some more.
Okay.
And then I saw a nice jump back up, but then a little bit of a jump back down. And if you have me, put out a whatever prognostication or a bet, presuming we don't hear any announcement today, right? I think that'll put a little downward pressure up from short-term traders in this space, right? So remember, there are plenty of traders, very active traders in this space. These are still micro-cap stocks. So yeah, continue to expect volatility. Continue to expect volatility even after any kind of rescheduling news. But yeah, continue to expect volatility. And I think for me, I'll still be continuing to look for a few more entry spots if I get them before an official announcement. But then we'll see how it goes from there.
All right. Fingers crossed. Yeah, I will say I cut out for 5 seconds there, but
Mine?
no, I think mine did.
Oh.
Which is strange. But what are you drinking? Pepsi?
High caffeine, high octane, low
Nice.
calories,
All right.
so I can have a slimmer body. For all the viewers, I know that's important to them.
I thought you were going to say more bang for your buck on the cannabis side of things like that. If you're having cannabis and you have, is that the same thing with alcohol? Probably, right? You digest it in a way that you get,
What? High
yeah, faster, I guess, with less.
in caffeine? Is that how that works?
I would imagine, right? To some degree.
I don't know.
I don't know either.
But yeah, it's high octane. Not
Push the
quite
limit.
your Celsius, quite a high octane, but
That is true.
high octane caffeine with a low calorie environment.
No, I like it. I feel like that's what everyone's going for. That's what we talk about with cannabis in general versus alcohol. I feel like some of it is the holiday, especially as we're like coming into the holidays, people normally drinking a lot. If you're looking for a lower calorie option, that'll be hitting people.
Name me the top 3 things on your wish list for Christmas.
World peace, got to be number one.
That's
Number
one.
two, got to say cannabis rescheduling. Number three,
Okay.
we'll go back to Labubu. Why not? I feel like,
You
so
want one of those,
I
really?
don't want a Labubu. No, I don't know.
Well, don't lie to everyone.
Gotta find something. I don't know.
Stick to your promise of trying to be as honest as you can during these
Um,
shows.
That's true. I don't know. Yeah, I feel like, don't really need
What about
much.
Eagles Super Bowl? Don't you want that?
Yeah, I feel like that's
Big
a
win over
prayer.
Todd's Raiders, huh? Did you
I
tell him
know.
stuff it, buddy?
I did not. I feel like he's
Oh,
probably having a good time though, so I feel like I don't want to rain on his cannabis parade. As
the
things are, because
Raiders are doing it for him.
yeah, that's something. They lost.
The Raiders lost, the Eagles
Okay.
won. Yeah, the Raiders didn't even put a point on the board.
Oh,
And to be fair, they're beating up on what seems to be a high school team. The Eagles are just celebrating all over the field as if they won the Super Bowl all over again. So that seems a bit over the top for a team that's struggling, but maybe they'll get their momentum back.
yeah, maybe. Got to take a win where you can. Probably should not gloat. You're right. If you are not doing
Right,
so
beating the
great.
Raiders. Come on,
Yeah, yeah.
come on,
Fair
Eagles. Come on,
enough. Fair
have
enough.
some
Fair enough.
self-respect.
They don't have much. I think it's fine. That's part of our charm. I think whatever. I've seen Kramer though out and about. He's
Oh
been
yeah,
out
he's
there.
a super fan.
He is. It's good stuff. All right. Well, then, in the world of cannabis, what else?
Mm-hmm.
Let me think. I wanted to touch on, of course. I think also
Supreme Court news, right?
the Supreme Court news. Trying to get a read on that. I think I've seen multiple kind of perspectives of some people thinking it's kind of moot ultimately, and with something like rescheduling, that kind of takes care of it. So I don't know if there's like conversations happening between sort of the judicial side and the executive side. I would doubt that's probably true. Um, but yeah, I don't know.
I don't know either. This is probably where I need sort of better legal experts to weigh in. I mean, my initial reaction, I think, is kind of negative, to be honest with you. I don't see why they wouldn't, take this up. But again, I don't know sort of the legal semantics of it all. I was optimistic they would actually take this up, right? Especially knowing, someone like Clarence Thomas has been out there to speak to this sort of inconsistency we have between the federal approach and the state's approach. That doesn't even count, whatever confusion the Farm Bill and hemp, right, threw into the mix with all of that. And so, and then in terms of what the Supreme Court is ultimately ruling on, right? I don't know if I completely understand that as well, except I understood that the implications could have been that things like 280E taxes were not, whatever, legal or constitutional.
Mhm.
Um, I'm not sure what else would have been deemed. Maybe interstate commerce possibly could have come out of, whatever ruling would have come in there. I don't think obviously a ruling comes out of it that says, oh, cannabis is legal now or descheduled or rescheduled, but just more how different things have been dealt with, right? What the federal government can and can't do relative to states' rights. And so I think, I'd seen a while ago someone sort of draw this analogy up between same-sex marriages being legalized at a state level, but not sort of really being recognized or legalized. I don't know if it was actually legalized at a federal level. And then the inconsistencies of all of that, right? When it comes to the nuances of stuff. I'm trying to think of examples of where it popped up, but one, certainly non-discriminatory
The
issues,
making a
right?
cake thing, right?
But
That was the big thing. The making a cake for.
well, I don't know that the federal legality came up there, right? That was more about someone's ability to refuse business, and whether or not that was illegal for them to do, which seems silly to me, right? If a business doesn't want to take certain business, it seems like a bad business idea, but if it's grounded on their morals or religious views or whatever, right? Forcing a private business to take on any public's business seemed silly to me. But more just stuff like I think one of the examples I had read was if someone was sick and in the hospital and sort of the nearest kin, right? If at a state level you're married to same-sex person and it's obviously whatever legal and all good in your state. And again, I feel like this is so antiquated conversation, right? It's going back in time. It seems so normal today, but
Sure.
um, are they the next of kin, and can the hospital let them in, and whose rules are they sort of governing by all this? And there were a couple of other examples like that. I think even like wills and trust and taxing and things like that, right? If you had this same-sex marriage that was legal in your particular state, but either unclear or not legal at a federal level, right? How are they treated? And states do have rights, and the federal government shouldn't be discriminating against people who are enjoying the rights afforded to them in their state. And so I saw someone just make a similar sort of connection, right? So you can't discriminate against these cannabis companies, cannabis workers, all these things, right? And that made sense to me, and that made sense that this case could be, taken up by the Supreme Court to say, in a sense, states do have rights, and the federal government has to recognize it. And so what that would have provided for, allowed for, again, I'm not sure that I'm entirely sure, in terms of the taxes and interstate would have actually granted all those things. I don't know. And I don't know that I believe that the Supreme Court justices are deciding on whether or not to take this case based on what Trump may or may not do, right? That's such a wild card in some ways as well. So I presume simply on the merits and what they're allowed to rule on and what they're not allowed to rule on, they made their decision. So for me, it feels like bad news, but I'd rather, hear Jason Wild or others who are probably better experts in the space weigh in on that.
Yeah, I would definitely defer to them. The only thing that I possibly think of, without being, again, any kind of legal expert, not a lawyer, not anything specialized to that, is that I don't know if that would create a weird precedent if you had a Schedule 1 drug and you are allowed to basically undo 280E, which was, designed to help curtail sort of the trafficking of Schedule 1 drugs. So that would apply to a wider range of drugs rather than just cannabis. If that were to change, I don't know if it could be reviewed, or if those 280E kind of, not taxes, but the taxes that would have been allowed through not being subject to 280E would be able to be more pursued, but from that slim focus on cannabis, not just anything Schedule 1, because I would imagine you could use it as a precedent. I don't know.
Yeah.
Gotta
Just
tap in.
us waxing poetically. But I will say it's different, I feel like, from what you tell me off the show at work, where you'll say something and then you'll always end it with, but you can take that to the bank, buddy, like as if you're like an attorney or something and you know all the rules. So you
Put it in.
always say that privately, even though now you're sort of backing away from that on the stream.
Sign off all my emails as a lawyer. Yeah, no, that's true. Honorable, something
You
else.
do. You demand that I refer to you as Mackenzie Peterson Esquire. That's
Esquire,
also
yeah.
weird.
Whatever,
I'll do it. It's fine.
Fair enough. I appreciate the flexibility. Yeah, no, we should tap into, I think, people who are directly involved in the case, get a better sense of kind of how they're viewing it and seeing it. Yeah, We'll see. I see El Guapo is running basically a countdown check, which is fair. I don't know. Next few views.
Next few seconds.
Next few views is great.
I'll know because I'll just pull up quotes and I will know if something's been announced.
Yes.
Down a little bit. Not announced yet.
Okay. All right. But only down. It's on the way up from where it has been, right?
I would have expected a bigger pullback from such a run up on Friday, and again, such a run up based on a headline. Again, thanks to the prohibitionists for really helping me solidify my view of, it's coming very soon. But I don't love, that they're trying to, piss in the pool a little bit. Is that a phrase you use, I think, a lot around the office?
Like a Texas phrase. Yeah, sure. Yeah. Rain on the parade. Not really, but yeah, I think they're trying to.
That's not what you say in the office outside of the live show. But
whatever.
So I didn't love, it confirms to me, I don't love that they could in any way have any influence on what seemingly the administration is heading towards. And this is a great example of where I know on one hand, the cannabis industry is trying to play the game as straight as they can, relative to influencing these politicians to do the right thing, and maybe have a tendency to sort of stay quiet as they're in the home stretch, hopefully. But yeah, it's trying to see some fighting back in the media and countering a lot of this crazy talk. Some outright lies, some, kind of easily mischaracterizations or misrepresentations. So seeing them be more aggressive with the media is definitely something I would love to see more of.
Yeah. What do you make of sort of the general coverage we've seen media-wise of rescheduling rumors coming back in the mix? I feel like it's been pretty solid in terms of coverage for, because I think even talking with friends, talking with definitely, overhearing conversations with advisors, I do think this is not super on a lot of people's radars just yet.
Agreed.
But I think you do see some coverage on TV. Obviously, these write up and articles that have been great that hopefully kind of penetrate into a wider audience, getting people a sense of kind of where things could be going, where things are now. I feel like what we've seen in previous years has been more kind of intermixed with articles that are kind of talking about the ills of cannabis. But I do think, like kind of what you're saying, the irony of it is tends to be talking about cannabis, the legal cannabis kind of framework, but kind of painting it with the ills of the illicit market is kind of interesting. I think same thing, getting into the hands of kids, all these things, having it be more dangerous, seemingly. But I feel like I have not seen as much of that more negative coverage lately. I don't know. Do you
Well,
have any
keep in
strong
mind too, we have come from this environment a few weeks ago with the government opening back up,
Yeah.
where there was some messaging of cannabis is illegal again, or cannabis has been prohibited again, right, in some way relative to closing that farm bill
Mhm.
loophole. So when you think about the people who you're describing, because I felt and observed the same thing on Friday, right? I'd get emails from people that I wouldn't normally get emails from saying, "Hey, what's going on?" or whatever, right? And so it's nice when it'd be great if CNBC got the right tickers correct, but it's nice when the CNBCs and other news organizations are talking about the cannabis space.
That's true. I do think CNBC, at least from what I had seen, they had definitely I think they had the right tickers, at least at first. I don't know.
I mean, they definitely mentioned ours at least once, which was great, but I saw a lot of Tilray references and I think a
I
couple
saw
of
it.
others. And they mentioned it 3 or 4 times throughout the day, which was great.
Yeah.
Tim Seymour got his own little segment to talk about
Yeah.
it. Kudos
Sure.
to him.
Yeah.
Lucky to have such a big access to a big megaphone.
Sure.
Not jealous at all. And
Yeah.
so yeah, even for him, right? I'd love to, see him do more about educating against, sort of what I'd call the news, right? Not the headlines that cause price action to go up, but some of these, crazy positions that people are taking. If you've got access to, get that information out there, it would just be great to see more of it refuting those things. If we could get on and talk about it, we'd love to be on in an instance. But yeah, so anyway, to your point though, seeing people talk about it that wouldn't normally talk about it, which for me, sort of again, coming off the hemp thing and then now seeing this like, oh, it's back on and everything's great,
Mhm.
net results in the price action you see on Friday,
Yeah.
with people voting with their dollars to a certain extent. Now we just need to get it to be
Across
real.
the finish line. That's true. Are you looking, let's see, okay, Ricky is saying, which is great. Channel 7 morning
Oh,
news product
nice.
scheduling might be happening soon too. That's great.
Nice.
Um, yeah, that's awesome. Okay, one sec. Wait. Let's
Yep.
see. CNBC did cover cannabis 8 times Friday. Wow, that's quite a lot. Yes,
Yep.
focus on Nasdaq listed tickers instead of those actually impacted by rescheduling. I think that's a conversation that we've had a good amount, but in terms of where sometimes the movement will hit first is those easier to access names. So those are the ones that tend to come up first. I think we've talked about that on the global side that kind of captures everything, and also the Nasdaq listed ones. Um, Sometimes move first, even though this is obviously a big catalyst for the US focused names. So,
Agreed. And we try to educate there as much as possible. In fact, when we know we're going to be on a segment, we send them tickers and things like that. PR firm tells them, hey, US tickers, but you can only do so much.
mhm.
Though the market's a bit negative today too. So,
We
you
started
know,
green. Where are we? Let's see. Oh,
yeah,
wow.
it seemingly dropped down. Dow's down about 20 bips, NASDAQ 40 bips, S&P 20 bips, which is nothing huge, just down a little bit. Crypto
Nice.
down, which is not doing well for my Kalshi bets. Which, speaking of that, remember all the bets we made on the Fed interest rate stuff?
What hit?
Nothing.
Oh, really?
Ofer.
Ah,
Ofer. I was
dang.
Ofer on because remember I thought they would stay flat on interest rates.
Yep.
Wrong. And then we picked 3 words, or I picked 3 words. Now, to be fair, I was picking words that had a little bit more juice on the upside that people mostly thought might not have been said. I got this many correct.
That's big risk. Sometimes big reward. Sometimes it's a miss.
I'm down like $40. Though I did make a couple of small sports related ones this weekend, and I think I'm back up about 7. So net over the last 5 days, I'm down around probably $33 or so, 30.
Okay. That's tough. I feel like you got to take, if you had to pick between hitting on those or not hitting on cannabis, but having cannabis find its,
I'm definitely a lot more on those options.
That's, can't believe you're digging in more, which is great. It's like Mitch is also adding in some information, which is people have issues buying OTC names. That's true. And not having them.
Agreed.
I think that's why it's easy to buy them in one.
That's true.
Yeah, that's fair.
Step right up, buy our products.
I think it's an easy way to access it currently.
They do. So Stevie's also, his next comment is they've got predictive market stuff they're doing. Yeah, it's interesting to watch how predictive markets are playing out, right? They are sort of viewing it as a security, I guess, right? From a Robinhood perspective, like an option, right? You can buy an option that something's going to work out by a certain price and a certain day or not. Trying to sort of stay arm's length away from being considered gambling, right? And having limitations there. It feels like early Airbnb or even Uber, right? Which was, hey, we're just going to let people walk and talk and operate like a taxi driver or a hotel, but they're not going to get the licensing and pay the taxes and everything else. And so they were operating in this, call it legal gray zone. I'm not sure it was actually really all that gray, right? If you hold yourself out as a hotel proprietor, you should pay the same maybe taxes as hotel people, right?
Sure.
Even though it is your place, you're still walking and talking like a hotel. So where it's all going to land, no clue. But for now, giving some flexibility and latitude to use it as best as I can tell, which if they got it deemed more like a security, I wonder what the implications would be on us and in our industry. For those that don't know, there's a lot of heavy restrictions on us, right? I can't trade stocks without getting permission from compliance first. And what they look at is whether or not the funds are trading any of those underlying stocks. So if the funds are trading or have traded those stocks in that day, I'm not allowed to buy or sell any of the stocks. I do have, for the most part, free ability to trade our pooled products. So mutual funds, ETFs, including our own ETFs, whereas someone like Dan who pulls the trigger has to get permission first before he can trade in our own ETFs, at least the ones that he manages. So we've got a lot of restrictions, on what we can and can't do. And I wouldn't think that predictive markets, if deemed a security, I wouldn't, I don't have any inside information on interest rates moving or not. So I would think we'd still have fairly unfettered access, but it wouldn't surprise me, right? That at least that I know of, I don't report my, I know that I don't report my DraftKings account to compliance. But if predictive markets were deemed a security, I might have to report my Kalshi account, right? Wouldn't that be weird?
Your wins and losses. That's true. I think it depends how niche the bets get. I think if it is something that is totally out of your control, whether it's Cowboys or the Fed or anything like that, I think that's a fair bet. But if it is something like, does Dan say the word whatever on the Nooner or something like that, that is much more easily controllable, that's where I think it's tough. I'm not putting out that, no one's putting out any kind of bet like that. But muddies the water, I think, a little bit. But it seems to be that's where a good amount of the demand is going, right? But I think that's more on it's just those quick trades. So I think people who are focused on trading, kind of aiming more that way. But there's still obviously, I think, a lot of room and benefit in that longer term investment for ideally building wealth over time. Not that you can't do that in betting on sports, but
no, just if you're gambling, just do that for fun and do it at a reasonable level. Don't become addicted to it. And if you do, call an 800 number.
Yes, that's true. Crazy. Mitch is saying, I think on Robinhood,
where is he paying $7?
$7 a trade each side.
On Robinhood?
Yeah.
For a predictive market trade?
I think for buying OTC names. Let me know if that's not right, Mitch, but I think that's what you're saying. Which, right. Okay. Do you think
But
for pretty?
maybe. My understanding is,
Maybe.
really, Robinhood doesn't focus on OTC trades because how they make their money and offer free trades is payment for order flow. And I don't know that that payment for order flow exists on OTC because you don't have a designated, listed market maker. Oh, and yep,
On
that makes
T.
sense. And so
Okay.
that's why Ameritrade charges. It's the same thing. There's no mechanism. There's no lead market maker to go to for payment for order flow. And I guess you could go to brokerage firms, right, that are sourcing the liquidity. And I'm not sure why they don't do it for OTC names, except they just wouldn't typically find everything that they're looking for from market making perspective. But yeah, that's not surprising.
Okay. It's still tough. Stevie's question on compliance, which is not the most
Yeah.
exciting thing, but a lot. I think there's a lot of focus that goes in, a
Don't
lot of
get
your
me
time
started,
too.
Stevie.
I know.
I
But
mean,
it's
I'd call it the equivalent of a person and a half, and these aren't entry level people, right? Your senior level compliance person is, basically an attorney or has the knowledge of an attorney, relative to not just the rules and the regs, but the operational practicality of it all. And that's probably, I'd have to think of not only our compliance, which I'd call a person and a half just for the advisor. That doesn't then account the affiliated broker dealer compliance for those that are licensed. I don't know which side you're on, but on my screen, you're
I'm
that
the other
way.
way.
Not licensed.
Yes.
And then the compliance work that goes along with that. Yeah, it's a lot. And then on top of that, and this is the hardest thing about being a small firm, God, especially during this last administration, it was, rule after rule after rule, and you're just new policy and procedures and new reporting and the derivatives test. And now there's this name rule thing we're looking at. And it's, then there was some additional reporting they wanted on short selling, which we have 2 short selling funds. It's just nicks you to death. It's 10,000 to file this report and 10,000 to do this report. Um,
Yeah.
it's expensive.
It is.
But just to make you feel better, we spend the money on it. It's the one thing that should be easy enough to avoid, right? Following the rules, just follow them. It couldn't be any, simpler.
Yeah, that's true. But a lot of work and effort goes in. Tough to run a business, I think is fair to say. But
Just
it's a good fight.
expensive. On one hand, I would say it makes it hard to be a startup, but there's a lot of service providers out there. And so it's the same old thing, right? You find a small enough one that's flexible to work with a small firm. And then as you grow over time, obviously they want to get paid market rates for their services, which of course makes sense. But yeah, it's a pretty healthy layer of expense which again, when I look at Kalshi or I look at, Airbnb or Uber, right? They find these gray areas of opportunities to kind of build this business, and they don't have, those same cost and
Yeah.
infrastructure, right? If they're not technically a security, but look like one, but there's no rules to oversee it, and they don't consider themselves gambling with all the banking compliance and know your customer and money laundering rules they would have in place to be a legitimate operating casino within the US. And that's not counting the state rules, as well in terms of where you can operate. And if you find your gray area, well, you don't have those costs. And that can be an easier way to build a business and create good opportunity until, it changes.
Yeah, as we say, the cutting corners approach or kind of trying to, doesn't always pay off, I think, in the end. Sometimes it can.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It's,
Okay.
yeah. So I'll be curious to see, where it goes with something like Kalshi and predictive markets. But for now, they're fun to look at. And for all the reasons I love investing, there's always something to look at. There's always something to bet on.
That's true.
And even though I invest differently than, I make the bets, it just makes all of it fun.
That is true. All right. Speaking of which, looking at this kind of scoreboard of where we are today with some other products, just to see how things are moving. So you said market's still red. I think that is still true. Just taking a look. But looks like some heating, ventilation, and air conditioning names potentially doing well, which is great to see. You mentioned the short products also having a solid day. Definitely would recommend people take a look. I think last week we had Brad Lemonsurf on, kind of sharing his view on what he's seeing in the market, where he's seeing weakness, and kind of his general read on kind of the current macro a little bit in general as well. I know he doesn't love getting into the macro all the time, but I think gives a good picture in terms of where we are, what the setup is across the board. Seems like a great hunting ground for names to short right now, even though I think we've seen a little bit of market breadth come back. But I still think some good names out there to find. What else is moving? Celsius, unrelated, but looks like they're positive
Nice.
today.
Congratulations.
It's good stuff. It keeps me going. Looks like some of the vices might be moving in a little bit of a way, which is interesting.
Holiday time.
Holiday time. Have you prepped and gotten all of your cannabis, alcohol, everything you need ahead of the holidays for yourself?
I'm typically well stocked. So yeah, it's mostly wine and herb.
Green and red. Red wine.
There you go. Yeah, it is mostly red. Yeah.
Nailing it. Okay, let's see. Wait. Mitch has got a question. Product development. Will you offer covered call ETF given others success
in this space? It's a good question. Covered call and or sort of a buffered strategy. Yeah, I mean, we've always had, we haven't mentioned tickers yet, but we have one in the lineup that has options as a component to it, but not in a buffered sort of a way. But it will write options for income, but it will also then buy, I think it's VIX puts as sort of an insurance, piece. It's got more of a blended investment objective. So that's really what I'd consider an active manager's way of, using it both for income and to try to provide a little bit of hedging in what's overall a balanced risk portfolio. But yes, we're looking at that space more. We're looking at that space more. We may have an idea or two to run out with that. Hopefully we've got a decent chunk of seed coming in for.
Nice.
So yeah.
Either way, trying to find products that work, product that people want, interesting, whether that's thematics. I know thematics have really become very popular and a great way to access stuff for advisors and just for the average investor because they're easy to understand, kind of capture those elements. But yeah, I think a lot of other good opportunities out there that are doing well outside of the thematics.
Yeah,
Right?
I mean, we're getting to the year end. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 products beating broad market benchmarks this year to date, which is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are absolutely destroying it now. Obviously, when you're looking at the cannabis category, those numbers have popped up here last day or so.
But
I think we got another 3 that are beating their benchmarks in a 3-year time frame. So, we've got some good stories in there.
That's true. I will say, even ahead of Friday, though, there was definitely at least one strategy for cannabis that was doing well, unrelated to kind of this extra boost that we're getting from the U.S. side, potentially.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting, too, in the 3-year mark, the 3 products that beat are all what I'd consider traditional or, somewhat traditional active management, right? It's the challenge with the themes. The themes will be in favor sometimes and not. They're like sectors, though maybe a bit more concentrated, more pure, whatever. But they're not, it's going to be hard for one sector to continuously outperform the market over a longer period of time, maybe with a note of exception to tech over the last decade or so. But all the other categories, at least, right, they're just gonna ebb and flow, and hopefully you're getting in them when the momentum's strong and those categories are strong. But we try to build tools like that to help people navigate on their own their portfolio. But the 3 that are beating benchmarks, they're related benchmarks in the 3-year time frame, are all just they're not in one particular sector and not in one particular theme. They move around.
Yeah. Okay. Well said. Sure. Well, I guess we can. Yeah. Well, I think hit on at least some of those coming up tomorrow with Dan.
Trying to say something without mentioning tickers.
Yeah, that's true. We'll talk about those in more depth, but yeah, I think it's important, which we talk about, a ton as well. Just being familiar with the tools, understanding how they're different, different ways to access different parts of the market, whether it's thematics or, like you're saying, not specific to a thematic. So
I don't think you've weighed in. What's your prognostication this week or next week for the cannabis industry?
I am curious why I don't. I think it could be potentially something where we see a ramp up like we've seen. We see a little, if something doesn't happen today, I think we do see some uncertainty kind of re-enter the mix. But to me,
can you articulate that uncertainty on a percentage basis for our viewers at home?
I cannot, I wouldn't guess specifics, but because it had been up so much on Friday, I would expect something double
Right.
digits is too vague, but I would
No,
expect something.
it's
I don't know
good.
if it, how about this? I think it will not go below potentially what we had seen on Friday. I don't think we'll lose all of those gains, but I think there'll be some reasonable pullback from there.
What if we
Um,
don't get
although
a signature on paper by the end of the day tomorrow? Then what does it look like?
tomorrow, I feel like again the holidays are kind of vaguely complicating things for me because I do think that's going to be, if it doesn't happen this week, I could see we kind of end up hanging out, but with some volatility. But I don't think we actually see a lot of like shares. I don't think we see a lot of people truly leaving the space because I feel like if you're at this point, you potentially think something is coming soon. I think people do step away for the holidays in some ways. So I think you'll have lighter volume in these microcaps. So I think things can get moved around in that time and space. Um, I don't know. I want to say I hope it gets done this week, which is a much narrower view than what you have, which I know.
We all hope it
Um,
gets done. I just want to know what's the implications in your mind, right?
yeah,
Personal opinion. If it's not today, if it's not tomorrow, if it's not Wednesday, if it's not by Friday.
I think we see volatility return. I think we see a hit to some of the stocks in the short term. I am curious how much, I know we talk about like the diamond hand, paper hand element, but how many people basically think they're much less concerned with the timing, and don't think anything is meaningfully stepped away from getting it done, even if it doesn't happen this week. So be curious to see there. And then I think it is tougher with the Supreme Court case not getting taken up is would make me more nervous. Um, but I think on, I don't know. I think it, whatever. I feel like it has to get done. Obviously, it doesn't. But
It's
I'm
hard to
still.
say
It's hard to
anything that
say.
would indicate, more red on the screen,
Excitement.
right?
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Um, yeah, I don't know. I still have a not preference, but a soft spot, or I don't know if it's like the trying to have more of a less all in view, but I do like the global side of things. It does have some exposure to the meaningful exposure to the US. Because I think if it doesn't happen in that time period, I think that gets hurt less. But you still have the potential for the upside. So I don't know. I think short term, you would see volatility. Short term, you would see stocks get hit. I think you see increased chatter and increased sort of theories getting shared online, which I think are probably important to filter out. Um, yeah, I think that's it. That's nothing crazy though, right?
Well, it's something crazy because you just used your vocabulary without using any numerals.
Okay, I don't want to throw out an exact number.
I know it's
I
hard,
feel like
right?
it's not. It sets up bad expectations for.
I know it hurts to say something negative.
It does.
You want me to do it for you?
No, I think okay. I think under 20%. It could be down though. I don't know. It could be more than that. I'll say that.
By
How about that?
tomorrow or?
No, by the end of the week.
Okay, that's good. That's probably in my range, right? For today, again, I don't know. I could see like a 10% ish pullback, right? And again, that's not, headlines will pop it either way, right? And I'm with you. The Supreme Court news probably didn't help, at least based on what we're seeing, didn't hurt it dramatically either. In fact, probably I would think that was probably the catalyst for that 5% drop down this morning, which gave me a window and I took it. But yes, I think as we get late into the day, remember these are microcap stocks. As I look at volume, actually volume's pretty healthy.
Volume's good. Yeah. It's like
Volume's
18
healthy.
minutes like that. Yeah.
But still, as we get in the late in the day, if there's no indication that today is the day,
Mm-hmm.
I'm with you. Double digits, 10-ish%, unfortunately, could be reasonable.
Sure.
And then I'm also with you. As we get through the rest of this week, could we lose, 50% of what we saw on Friday? I think unfortunately, yeah. I mean, again, and I say that because they're microcap stocks. I say that because if all the energy goes in one day and then most of the energy is left, those we're looking at volume, there's still some energy there. It doesn't take a lot of money to push these things around. So, traders are going to trade and they're microcaps. So microcaps going to do what microcaps do. So yeah, I could see that pressure. Now, just to hold hands and dream virtually,
What could go up?
right?
I would
Hard,
say
right?
it could be
What
triple.
if
I would
what
say,
if he signs
oh,
today, which let's presume it will be aftermarket, and I don't think it's going to happen. Again, just a
yeah,
wild speculation alert on the screen.
sure.
But let's hold our hands and dream for a moment. Um,
Yeah.
he signs aftermarket close today.
hmm
What does the percentage look like tomorrow
I think you get, I would
for the
imagine,
single beta?
I would say, yeah, I would say you get triple. I feel like it's not insane to think
Triples in
sounds like a crazy,
300%?
no, triple, no, triples in triple digits. So 100, I
Oh,
think it could be that again, because it's still that smaller pool. But I think as the news kind of expands out to wider and wider elements, as it seems more viable as an investment to more traditional investors, advisors, things like that. So I think in that short term, I think you do get a big pop. And then I think that would probably just you continue to find a new floor, I would imagine. I don't think you keep seeing the triple digits up necessarily, but I think you probably get a big whammy. Let's see. What do you think? I feel like it's
well,
so
so far, first of all, triple digits is pretty vague. That means 100 to 999. Is that right?
that's okay. I'll say I want to say 420. I'm not going to say
That
420.
would be awesome.
That would be
That
great.
feels like a lot, though.
It feels like a lot. I'd say
Doesn't feel like a lot over time, but for
no, of
just
course,
the initial pop, yeah.
the day. I would say 100, 120. That's what I'll stake it as.
I'm in the same camp.
Okay.
Yeah.
Stressful. We'll see. I
That's why
hope
I
it's
wanted some of
hope
those
it's right.
options.
I know. But then I do know I will be probably kicking myself because I know you've been legging in again, which is great. I've been holding on, but I should be getting a little bit more
That's why they
probably.
call it a market. It's
Yeah.
awesome. It's
Yeah.
fun. It's
That's
stressful
true.
at
Yeah.
times,
It's good.
but yeah. So yeah, it's fun to sit back and dream and prognosticate all the percentages we've given. Don't do
Steak.
anything with that information. We have no clue what's going to happen.
Yeah.
It is fun to think about and speculate. I'm excited that we got the good news Friday. Excited that people love to use our products to express that, which also makes me happy, and we appreciate it. I saw Mitch post that he's got a healthy amount of exposure in our products, so thank you for using our stuff, Mitch. It means a lot to us. As a small firm, going through Friday, I think we rolled into Friday morning 1.4 billion of assets under management in change. Ended Friday just a hair under 2 billion. So what a crazy day. What an awesome day if you're, at a small ETF shop impacted by that. So yeah, we appreciate people using our stuff. We appreciate the support that they give us, and pretty hopeful and optimistic for some really cool change in an industry where, we're just on the asset management side, right? It's everybody else that's doing the hard work to move that industry forward. So I appreciate the work that they're doing and appreciate when people, use our stuff. It means a lot to us.
Yes. Big thank you. And again, we want to be here to help you, give you resources to kind of guide through as hopefully these
It's
changes
more like
happen.
thoughts, right? Give them thoughts to think about. I don't know that we come on here with answers as much as
Oh,
talking through some of the data points, giving our opinions on some of the data points.
sure.
But your opinions are just as good as ours. So
That's true. I think in terms of the macro, that is true. But I think, when we have Dan on tomorrow, I think him being able to
all
kind
right,
of
his
share how he's
opinion's
looking at
better
the
than mine.
portfolio.
All right, fine,
No,
fine.
but how he's looking at the portfolio, how he's looking at the names. I think all those things can matter. So I think being able to try to provide value to make things easier for you, if you're investing in cannabis or anything else, I think is what we're trying to do and help with. So
Maybe
we'll
you're a
see.
contractor in the heating, cooling, and
Ventilation.
space. Yes,
Such a
ventilating
mouthful.
space. What is
Yeah.
the ventilating space?
It's you gotta like if you're in a lab or in a casino or
Like
something
clean
like
air
that.
and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
it's cleaning the air. And all right, one sec. Wait, let me see what's going on.
And not that we spend too much time on tragedies, but holy crap, what a
Yeah.
rough weekend between Rob
Yes.
Reiner and Brown University. Damn it, it sucks.
It is very painful. That is true. I think it's not the silver lining of the story because I don't think that story, calls for that. But I think somebody stepping in to kind of be a hero to disarm somebody and put
Oh, in Australia, I left that
is
out. That's
is
what you're talking about,
yeah,
Australia.
yeah,
Holy
sorry,
shit, yeah,
yeah.
that too.
Is
Jesus,
so
yeah, what a crazy weekend.
What? Yeah. Yeah. So it's also true, putting it in all perspective. Okay, wait, I'm seeing some questions. Yeah, Australia.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay,
Crazy.
wait.
But yeah, you're right. That dude that jumped him from behind, I saw that video.
Huge
That
active bravery.
dude has
I
a
think.
sack on him,
Sure.
right? Because
Yeah.
it's real,
Right.
like in that moment. And you know that if it doesn't go well, you're done.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, holy cow, that dude, that's impressive. I would like to
Salute.
believe I could have, that kind of courage. I'm not sure that I do, quite frankly.
I think
But
you might. I think it's hard.
that
That's
dude's awesome.
probably when you're in the actual moment that you make that decision. But yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's crazy. Okay, wait, take final things. Stevie, evidently President Trump works a lot of hours, possibly a good sign after the market closes. That is true. Again,
Yeah.
that's also a hard thing. I don't think it's going to come out. My
That's
one
what
bet,
we've seen though too, right? People are being like, there may not be a lot of big fanfare. It just gets signed and done, and then
yeah,
move on. People can cry for about 30 minutes that are against it, and then they're going to move right on to the next story.
true. I think there will be fanfare on our end of the our corner of the internet as well. But yes, that is true. It is, but yeah, I don't think it's going to happen at 9:30 when the market opens. Blah,
And
blah,
I would
blah.
say whoever's yelling in all caps, Trump, keep your promises. I mean, keep in mind, I don't actually think he's promised to do this. He said he's in favor of it and he's for it. But I don't know that I've seen any video where he's run on a campaign that says, I'm going to get this done.
Yep.
Clearly has said favorable things. So all I'm asking for is, do the right thing. I'm not going to hold him to some promise I don't think he actually made. But keep with his approach, I think, mostly his approach of doing the whole 80-20 thing. And this is an easy, no-brainer 80 thing.
Yes, agree. I will say he hasn't, he didn't have it on his website in terms of a campaign promise or anything like that. But I do think that there have been comments he's made around rescheduling and around medical cannabis that do feel more like, I'm going to look at this, I'm going to get something done here. So again, you're right. It's
And
not,
he didn't create a slideshow like your friend, really, Kamala Harris, who seemed to indicate that the change was done already and that, mission accomplished. Remember that? The
no,
slideshow?
no, I don't
Remember
remember
that slideshow too, where they reversed the states that were legal versus who had approved adult use? They had it reversed in their color coding, or at least in the legend and the way they put it. There were two issues with that slideshow.
Well, that's tough. All right. Well, I guess the ultimate thing. Okay, wait, I'm trying to get to the final questions. Nice. Thanks for stopping by. I'll
Thank you.
Now or never. Yeah, that's fair. Just because it's a big deal doesn't mean it's a big deal for everyone else. But I do think it's one of those things that, I mean, yeah, I think having access to cannabis is a big deal for a not majority of Americans, but for a good sizable portion of Americans who need it for medical use, who need it for those things. So I do think it does, have an impact.
When you line it up with the tragedies of this weekend, which again, I think is a people problem. We can get on political rants if we want. I think it's a people problem, not a gun problem.
Yeah.
And in fact, I'm at the opposite end, that if more people had guns, not quite as many people, would have been shot there if all of a sudden 10 guns were trained on them. And it should be more than just some guy having to jump, on another dude defenseless, but that's a separate rant. Yes, any medicine or otherwise that helps people find some peace and calmness and balance in their life is seemingly desperately needed.
Yeah, it's not imposed on everyone, but I think being able to access it, if it is something that helps you, is great. Even if it affects 50%, 25%, to be able to have access to those tools in a way that is safe. And
do you want to do gun debate next week, me and you?
Let's do it. I have some thoughts. I do think it is interesting. Wow, whatever. Yeah, I do have some thoughts. Fair enough. But yeah, we'll get into more of the cannabis discussion. I think especially after today, we'll have more to talk about. So we're going to have Dan Aarons. Of course, it's Tuesday. They'll have him on Tuesday. So if you have any specific questions, feel free to bring those.
I do. Can you go over the wine list that Stevie tagged you in on the internets, and find out which of those wines? Just send it to Dan early and say, give me 5 quality value wines from this list that we can put on people's holiday recommendation.
I like that. Okay, I'll do that, and also throw in probably one cannabis related. I know he's in Texas, but he's done enough of the trips and traveling to Illinois or wherever else to maybe have a recommendation. I don't know if he wants to pick a favorite. Yes, we'll get him something. We'll get some recommendations out there. That should be all good. All right. Well, thanks for taking the time. Oh, shoot. Okay. I will also be posting after this.
What?
A giveaway. I was doing some reading again of the Investing in Cannabis. I think some fun gems in here.
Signed by Dan? Did we get him to sign them?
They are signed. Yeah, they're sanded. They've got some stickers in them. I'll even put in
The crazy thing is the book's a bit dated, but I think a lot of the points, well, one, you get a chance to read it and see, what points kind of came through. And kind of see where we're at today.
I still think this one, the top one of investing like
there you
alcohol
go.
and prohibition, is a good one.
Nice.
Anyhow, with all that said, I'll do a post later, so stay tuned, and I'll retweet it through the AdvisorShares account. So if you're following AdvisorShares, you will see it. And I think that's it. All right. Thanks so much for joining. Appreciate it. Thanks everyone for being here, and we'll catch you next
Bye,
time.
everybody. Thank you.
Bye.
Before investing, carefully consider the investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses found in the prospectus, available at AdvisorShares.com.